Hi, my name is M0uS3r. This is the first episode in a series that I will be starting where I go over the different Overwatch League rosters during the off-season, mostly just to review their roster, who they dropped during the off-season, who they're picking up, what signings I want them to make over the off-season, and generally where I think they'll place over the next season. With the information we have, of course, nothing is set in stone. So the first team, because we're going in alphabetical order, the first team that we'll be talking about is the Atlanta Reign. And I think this team is weird, because after a season, pretty mediocre season, they dropped a lot of their non-important pieces, I think is what you'd call them. People like, Fire, Dogman, m0uS3r, the people who weren't played as much towards the end of the season, which sucks, because I think a lot of these players are very, they have a lot of potential, and I think they could get picked up by another Overwatch League team and do pretty well. But, that being said, I'm going to start by going over the roster that they currently have, because they do have a full 7 at this point. Starting with the tanks first, they have Gator and Hawk, which I think that this tank line is underwhelming at best, because I wasn't very high on them last year, and they didn't do that well last year, so they just sort of like sunk my impression of them further. Gator and Hawk, they play, I would say they're relatively flexible. They don't play everything at a high level. I think their best tank line is like Sigma Orisa, which of course has been played a lot in the pro scene over the past few months, year, about that. But I would not rank this tank line very highly, and I think that the tank line should be something that solidifies your spot in the Overwatch League, because you think of these top teams of like San Francisco Shock, for example, last year, with Smurf, Super, and Choi, and you don't really see a hero that they don't play, right? But anyway, let's move on to the supports now, with Masa and Iris, I think is how you say it, which I think that this support line is okay. I think Masa is definitely like an above average, I would say, main support. I wouldn't rank him super highly just yet, but Iris, I'm super excited to see more from, because I think Iris has a lot of potential, and has played very well in the past, and played pretty well this past season, and I'm interested. Now, the DPS lineup is where things get a little weird, because Edison, Sharp, Pelican, which looks like a great DPS line on paper, but last year we also saw Edison, m0uS3r, and that did not pay off the way that we wanted it to. I think with this DPS line, the way that it is, I think all of these players are very good players, and I think Atlanta Reign has always had very good DPS players, but the rest of the team hadn't been able to compensate for that, if that makes sense. You think about Season 2, they had people like Baby Bay, Defran, and as soon as Defran left, when they didn't have that star power there anymore, they sort of started slipping. This past season, they had Edison and m0uS3r, who 100% should have been one of the best DPS lines in the league, if not the best. And they did not achieve much off of that. But I'm interested to see what moves this team makes. If I were to choose, then I would pick up... It's hard to say who I would pick up, because I think there's a lot of talent. Maybe someone like DCOD from North American Contenders to replace Gator, because I think Gator hasn't played super well on the Reinhardt or the Winston, and only really showed top talent on the Orisa, which you can't really... Like, you can keep Gator and still have DCOD, and I think that would be a great idea. I'm not sure exactly what other moves they could make, mostly because this is a pretty differing nationality roster with a lot of Western talent and then South Korean talent. But where would I place them in terms of like how well I think they'll do? I think where's Atlanta? There we go. I don't think they'll be amazing. I don't think they'll be very bad, because I think their roster is solid. So I think they'll be around the A and B range at the point that I have them. I am going to put them at A, just because I think that they will again be the gatekeeper team, if that makes sense. The team that is better than all the Bostons, the Parises, all these lower tier teams, but won't be able to compete with Washington, Glads, San Francisco, these top tier teams. Yeah, thank you. This is the first installment of my going over the Overwatch League teams during the off season. I hope you guys continue to watch as I continue to upload.